some of the worst parenting mistakes your well-meaning parents made while raising you? Serious. Story 1. Getting mad at me for saying bad words. Getting mad at me for swearing I can understand, but my dad once flipped out on me because he thought I said penis. I said penis, but even if I had said penis, getting angry with a child for using the correct anatomical term for the male reproductive organ is ridiculous. Story 2. On my 4-year birthday, my parents decided to baptize my brother. They had a big party with everyone from my family and stuff, and no one wished me a happy birthday. I know they didn't think about it all, but it's something I remember very clearly. I cried myself to sleep that night. Story 3. The clean plate rule and super strict diet. Now finish everything on my plate with compulsive relentlessness and have a really hard time moderating snacks. A neighbor once felt so sorry for me that she gave me a small bag of chips for my birthday. I hid under my bed and ate them. This does not lead to a healthy relationship with food. Story 4. My dad used to get hit as a kid. He grew up and figured that's how you discipline kids. He had this brown broken extension cord head use. That thing hurt like on bare skin. I'm a parent of 3. I never hit them. Oh, they push you the limit where you understand it, but I just never could bring myself to do it. Story 5. Telling me I was a good writer. Then when I asked her to read things I wrote, being told that his plot hole's big enough to sail an aircraft carrier through, no further detail, no help, no identification of what exactly the hole was. 5th grade writing contest. I had been writing ongoing stories in a world I had created. Was going to write up a new bit or recycle an old one in that world. Mom decided she'd write her own story in my world with my characters and make me turn that in. I didn't make it past the first round. Gave her a story I wrote later on for her to look over. She gave it back, having rewritten it. All my complex sentences were reduced to subject, verb, object. The flow was gone. The tone was gone. Just choppy words left. I hate everything I write now, but everybody tells me to keep doing it because I'm good at it. Story 6. They were pushing me to be perfect. By perfection, they meant the girl that never raises her voice, always does as she is told to, is everyone's pushover, has the best grades at school, but never get higher education or a job and goes straight to becoming a stay-at-home mom, is smart but not feminist, doesn't wear makeup, doesn't go out with friends. Only women that don't care about their family do these, spends all her life with her family as close as possible. Has social skills, but only limited to relatives. Story 7. Holy was I shelter. I was super sheltered to the point where when I got to the real world, I had no idea what to do. Am 28, still don't know anything. I never got to hang with friends, thus affecting my social skills. My mom would constantly degrade me if I couldn't figure out a problem, even she couldn't do, for example. One of her favorite insults was, "Come on, Chad. We're not reinventing the wheel." Yes, I'm a Chad, I might as well say. Everything that we would do always had to revolve around what my mom liked. It makes me feel like my hobbies aren't worth the light of day. She constantly interrupts me when speaking just to talk to someone else, which makes my words feel like they're worthless, like something that holds no value. It's made me feel empty, to be honest. I hate talking about my feelings because I feel like I don't know how to describe them without sounding like an emo 16-year-old telling me their issues with each other blatantly, just talking about one another divorced. Story 8. Never explaining their decisions and reasoning. In the mom. That's why. Never apologizing when they made mistakes. Showing love with material things. Teaching me to be so polite that I couldn't say no to anything or stand up for myself. Story 9. Constantly up in the bar if I made BS. Then as became the minimum, I watched my siblings once, but then I got to watch them every week. Nothing was ever good enough. I work out. Oh, well, you're doing it wrong. I hated running. I try to pray and be active in my faith. I'm too into it. Really wasn't they just didn't like anything that told them no. All of this was to supposedly push me to achieve more and be stronger, and instead, I just gave up on trying because what's the point of getting BS, which was really hard with my ADD, wasn't good enough, why bother trying for as? Story 10. I was one of those model gorgeous kids, and my parents basically made my worth about my looks. I now have an eating disorder and really low self-esteem because I was taught my accomplishments didn't matter as long as I looked pretty. Story 11. From what I gather, since she's never been straight about it. My mother had some bad encounters with men when she was young in settings where she was supposed to have been safe. As a result, she drummed it into our heads that basically no man could be trusted except our father and that all males were potential rapists. That's been fun. I had no male friends growing up, and time spent at friends' houses who had brothers was strictly limited. To this day, I can't really relax around men, and am actively trying to train myself to trust, like, be friends with men, and not constantly think, but he might rape me, with literally every man. How I got married is a miracle I have yet to explain given these feelings I had. Story 12. They are very closed-minded about certain topics, e.g., suicide, mental health in teenagers, LGBTQ stuff, etc. They're otherwise awesome parents, but it makes it difficult to talk about certain things like my personal issues. My younger brother is the only adult that knows me because my sisters would blab about it or be against it, and we don't know my parents' reaction, especially since bro is kind of young. Story 13, my parents ignoring my eating disorder for a long time when I was young. I found out years later that they did know about it, but were unsure of what to do and embarrassed to bring it up. I just assumed they had no idea. I was pretty young and very, very sick, definitely needed some intervention. I think they wanted to help, but avoided it because it was a confusing subject. Edit, never thought I'd do an edit. This is only a private account I go on occasionally. I made a response about my past that I thought would go unnoticed. Story 14, sometimes a kid just needs to be upset and have a parent listen and empathize instead of approaching feeling negative emotions like a problem that needs to be fixed. My brother and I were never allowed to be upset or angry or sad without being just hounded to death about needing to just let things go and think positively. Story 15, not everyone's going to agree with this, but spanking me. ID gets spanked with just about anything aside from a belt, and if I was crying from being spanked to the point of nearly forming welts, my father would ask me if I needed a reason to cry. Like what the, I'm crying because you nearly beat my bottom raw. Story 16, overprotecting me. I had cancer twice before I was 5 years old, and so my parents really shielded my life. A kid's birthday party, my mom would be there too, playing out until late. Nope, not allowed. Even when I was older, there was no going to nightclubs. I had to be in by 10 p.m. and had to argue my way to let my boyfriend, now husband, stay the night. As a result, I'm rubbish at socializing, struggled to make my own decisions, as someone was always there with an answer for me and didn't know anything about running a house, as it was all done for me, not my choice. When I came to move in with my boyfriend, they were all, do you not like us anymore? What have we done to deserve this? My guy had to show me everything, washing machines, bills, cooking, everything I know. Is because of him, they continued to message, email, and phone several times a day until I asked for space and to be allowed to live my life. We have a better relationship now, and I have my own little girl, so do understand to some extent. But I know ID want her to be supported and loved hard, but allowed to scrape her knees and be included in everything. My job as a parent is to make her feel confident about herself and teach her everything I know to help her become a well-rounded and independent individual. Story 17. Making you think showing a little bit of belly skin makes you slutty. Not complimenting you in any ways, not taking interest in your child's interest, not acknowledging your child's basic freedom to decision. Story 18, making us eat healthy all the time. We never ate out. Every meal was at the table. Even if we were out, we would have to wait to go home to eat, or lunch would be packed. No junk food, sweets, or snacks, ever. If you make food forbidden, you want them more, and will lead to a rough relationship with food later down the line. Story 19, making my sister and I clear our plates at every meal. This would have been fine if they served as child-sized portions of food, but almost every time we would be served the same amount as the adults. We both now feel very guilty about wasting food, not clearing our plates, and we've both struggled with being overweight for our entire lives. Story 20, my mom used to make me make phone calls under the guise of teaching me how to talk on the phone. But she was having me call adults as a young teen about business stuff like the electric company, for example, and not giving me the information I would need to complete the task like the account number or whatever, so I'm absolutely sure I was just annoying people who were trying to do their jobs, and my phone anxiety as an adult is almost crippling. Story 21, not making me do chores and homework. Now I'm 19 and trying to learn all. My work ethic is awful, and I can't stop procrastinating. They neglected me overall. But this was more of a so you don't have to bore yourself with this unnecessary stuff. Story 22, beating me with a belt hanger for bad grades. Yeah, that helped. I just haven't laid a hand on my kids, and they're killing it. My parents taught me how to not parent like them. Story 23, my mom had a completely bonkers outlook on relationships. It's definitely because of her deeply abusive childhood, but the outcome was nuts. She kept warning me and my sister when we had relationships in our teens, 20s that we were changing and that we had lost our sense of self. She insisted on being in the room and writing down talking points if I was on the phone with a boyfriend. Queefing, according to her, only ever happened if you had violently rough. So if you queef, you know you're in an abusive relationship. She showed me how to lick my hand and use my spit as lube for a better hand job when I was a young teen. Yet she also thought that thongs were completely unacceptable and whorish. But she bought me one with the idea that I was only allowed to wear it at home while doing something like reading. We were never allowed any privacy ever, open bathrooms. We all slept together on the kitchen floor. Any insistence that I needed privacy was responded to by teasing me that I was going to go masturbate. Oh, speaking of, she told me that it's sad when married women use vibrators because that means they're sad and lonely. She once found her older sister's vibrator and just pitted her Also, if you use a vibrator, you will stop being able to without one. How do you know that, Mom? The plot thickens. She told me only whores wear clothing more than once before laundering them. There were, sadly, a lot more tidbits like this, but I don't want to get obnoxious. Story 24. By only applying tough love, which by my mother's definition, belittling my siblings, and I thinking if she told us we were worthless and couldn't amount to, that we would suddenly have a fire within and work hard to prove her wrong. She just thought because that's how she's motivated, because she's a very competitive person, that we would take it the same too. This applies to more than just academic or career-type criticizing. She also applied it to personal things like our appearances. Now all three of us just struggle with depression and anxiety, and I have a hard time accepting any praise and have to learn to even be affectionate because my mother never showed or really gave any in my life. Story 25. Moving around the country a lot. They thought it would be fun and would see different places. Instead, it made it difficult for me to make any friends because I knew I'd be moving soon anyway. In my mid-30s now, still struggle to make friends and have this weird feeling like I don't have a hometown or belong anywhere. Story 26. Not letting me get held back a grade when it was being threatened in grade school. My dad literally said no daughter of mine is being held back. I have ADHD and had a really hard time keeping up with my class. I told my dad recently about this and how I fully believe I academically would have been better if I'd been held back. Story 27. My mom apparently believed that if you refuse to talk about it, it doesn't exist. Wrong. I was molested by my pediatric dentist, who was very publicly arrested and charged with molesting his patients. Story 28. Not vaccinating me and my little sister. My mother is a very loving mother who actually did a decent job raising us, but she genuinely believed that vaccines could be dangerous. I'm just thankful she was a hipster in this aspect. Both me and my sister have been able to get our vaccinations on our own before the horde of anti-vaxxers really ruined herd immunity. Story 29. Sheltering me and not allowing me to go out as a teenager. I was confident in my ability to be responsible, but my mom was insistent that I wasn't ready and that she was protecting me from the real world. I feel like I missed out on a lot and went into college woefully unprepared from a social standpoint. I had a hard time making friends and was afraid to try new things. Story 30. My parents always taught me and my siblings that we were better than that, essentially that we were better than other people. It took me years to undo the sense of superiority and lack of empathy for others that this created. One of my siblings still acts this way, and I believe it to be hugely detrimental in their interactions with other people. I realized over time that there's a big and positive difference between rising above through behavior, thinking and actions, and experiencing yourself as being better than others. My parents had good intentions and are good people, but it was definitely a parenting oversight. Story 31. I was teaching my 5-year-old how to do a shoulder roll. Halfway through the roll, my nearly 2-year-old came running over. I heel kicked the little guy in the next week. My foot was hurting for a good hour. Thankfully, he took it like a champ and only suffered from a black eye. I've never felt so much guilt. He cried for a good 5 minutes, and then we shared a banana, still waiting to see the long-term side effects. Story 32. Just to say, my parents are definitely well-meaning and have done more for me than anyone in my life. However, they sure aren't perfect, and a couple things I want repeat with my possible future children are when I was 12 or so my mom found someone I'd looked up, and the way she reacted had led me to believe I was one of the nastiest people in the world for a while, and she still brings it up 14 years later, calling it the sick stuff. Then, my dad mainly just won't ever let a darn thing go. I continue to hear about the little things that have irked him over the years, like over and over. I don't even remember half the stuff he's still mad about from years ago, like moving out at 18 or stealing something of his, which he steals stuff from me. So, it seems fair to me, but it mainly just saying these things as a reference for the changes in parenting methods I plan to have. I honestly think they're ignorant of the way these things affect me. And when I try to bring it up to them, they get defensive, so I've basically given up on attempting to talk it out. It is what it is, I suppose. Story 33. The worst parenting mistake that my mother has ever made was when I was 4 years old. My mom brought me into the gas station, and there was a really friendly lady behind the counter with a magenta hijab. I looked up at her, lightly pointed, and asked my mom, "What is that hood for?" With a box of unpurchased honey buns in her hand, she grabbed my arm and pulled me outside of the store, saying, "Don't say that they're bad." She went back into the store, purchased the honey buns, and put me in the car, and she drove back home. Story 34 came out to my mom at the age of 17. She was the first person I ever told, and I confided in her not with the intent of telling anyone else, but because I needed to tell someone. She has a gay brother and had never spoken poorly of him, of gay people, or anything like that, so I assumed it would be okay to tell her. In hindsight, she meant well and was trying to protect me from a hateful world, but in the moment, telling me, "Don't tell any of your friends because they will all hate you for it," was not a great course of action. It made me immediately associate shame with my sexuality. It broke my trust with her and made me feel even more alone than I did before, despite having told someone my biggest secret. I can't blame this instance for the depression and anxiety I struggle with today, but I would consider this one of the events that lit the spark. Story 35, never teaching me or letting me do anything by myself. My father did everything around me, raised me to be so dependent on him. I cooked a meal for the first time when I was 20. I mowed a lawn for the first time when I was 25. I did dishes and laundry for the first time at 18. I didn't even have to put gas into my own car or find a job or anything before I moved out. I had to learn everything by myself as an adult. When I asked to teach me, it would last 1 minute before he would say, "No, that ain't good. Move and let me show you," and then finish whatever I was doing without a word or actually teaching me how to do anything. Story 36, they wanted to encourage us to do what we enjoyed, but by doing that it put the rest of us down. My older sister could draw really well. It was her thing, so they told me I couldn't draw as well as her. My younger sister couldn't draw or do art because it was my older sister's thing, so they told her she was amazing at dancing and cooking. That meant when I made food, they told me it wasn't as good as hers, and when I danced, I wasn't as good as her. I was amazing at sport and helping around the house, so my siblings all couldn't be. That meant I did all the housework by myself. My little brother, oh, he was so intellectually inclined, so we all couldn't be. In the end, it just all of us up. I was called stupid constantly because my brother was the smart one. I am the only child so far to pass high school because I was the only one that could get over being called stupid and dumb compared to my brother on a regular basis. I got into the top 8 in my state for 3 of my subjects. My smart little brother, he is dropping out of primary school. My siblings are all unfit because I am the sporty one and they were never encouraged to do sport. My little sister doesn't draw even though she enjoys it because our older sister is just the best at drawing. My little sister is now an apprentice chef, but she's the only one who knows how to cook because we were all told it was her thing, so we couldn't. My mother taught me, but always told me I was bad, and now it gives me anxiety to let people eat food I make because I worry I am scared to dance because I was always told I was awful at it and my youngest sister was the best. We all compare ourselves to each other in such a negative way because my parents wanted us to feel special and unique, but really ate us all up and made us feel inadequate in many aspects of our lives. Story 37, every dollar I made at my job was fun money. I appreciate that my parents paid for all of my necessities, but spending every dollar you get on fun stuff is a very hard habit to break. My parents were and are amazing. I'm not complaining. I'm just still learning as an adult. Story 38, my dad didn't respect me. It made me go through life looking for validation where I shouldn't have, looking up to the wrong kind of friends, seeking approval when I didn't need to, lack of confidence, wanting everyone to be my friend. Luckily, I got past those issues. I still want everyone to be my friend, but the difference is I don't care if they aren't, but I'm pretty nice and friendly with everyone. Now I seek only the best friendships with the best people. Story 39, they are too conservative. They would never go into feelings or have real conversations. And when things were wrong, they would just throw us into therapy. And if they couldn't diagnose us with anything, then we were bad kids. So they would constantly threaten to kick us out. Story 40, control my money. My mom had complete and utter control of my money until I was 16 and got my first job. I know she did it because she knew I would spend it all on stuff I didn't need, but this has now led to me struggling not to buy everything I want the second I want it. I'm really bad at not impulse buying things because when I was younger, you either bought it and didn't tell mom, or you spent years wishing you did. I know she meant well, but it had to save money at all. Story 41, my dad would mentally abuse me, shout and shout over the littlest mistake only after the divorce W my mother, and would call her a witch. I was scared and nervous, so I just agreed and went along with it. I ended up drowning myself in technology. To hide my pain from my mom, I stopped seeing him around about at 9 years old and got depression, even self-harmed. It still haunts me to this day. Even after counseling, I regret everything. Story 42, they never supported my hobbies. Unless it was reading, hiking, or flying model planes, my dad's only hobby, I wasn't encouraged to pursue anything. They didn't actively discourage my involvement, but I was never allowed to spend my own money without their approval. And their answer was always no. It was always so frustrating to me that the neighborhood kids and my friends could go blow their money on toys while parents never allowed me to. They kept telling me that I would grow out of it in 2 months or it was a waste of money. While that's very likely, you need to let kids be kids and make mistakes and learn from it. If I wanted to blow all the money I made over the summer mowing lawns on a new paintball gun or a gaming PC, who the cares? As an adult, I find it difficult to cultivate new hobbies. I do splurge on nice things from time to time, but haven't really found a passion. Story 43, teaching. That is something between two people who love each other. Sounds super nice, but it sets up a thought box that if you love someone, you should be having with them, or if you have with someone, you must be in love with them. It is actually a really bad piece of logic that leads to some very poor judgment calls. Story 44, I was held back in the 4th grade. I was getting asthma treatment, missed 87 days of school, and had a doctor's excuse for all of them, and was still held back with good grades. My parents sued them and pulled me out of public school. The intention was to homeschool me, but I wasn't educated at all during this time. I was essentially an elementary school dropout. I tried going to high school, but that ended shortly after a panic attack, because up until that point, I rarely left the house. The majority of my 20s was spent learning socialization skills. I also have a math dyslexia as a result of it. Any arithmetic past division just looks garbled and confusing. My parents do recognize the mistake they made. Story 45, copy-pasted from elsewhere. My family thanks him because my parents, mostly my dad, spent my entire childhood since age 10, which was before I started being interested in girls, hitting me over the head with the idea that in relationships are bad for some reason and that I should avoid them like the plague. Like they went out of their way to drive that point home. More than anything else that didn't have to do with education, I should instead focus on school and not let myself be distracted by girls like my older brother was. Of course, if you were to ask my dad what his opinion on was, he'd tell you it was a wonderful thing, provided it was between a married opposite couple, protection was avoided, and all intercourse was exclusively vaginal. Because of this, I never revealed to them that I, as a normal living non-hermaphroditic organism, have an orientation because my parents want the best for me and know what they are doing, and I wanted to have their approval. I still regret not being more rebellious as a teenager in general. As an adult, though, now, it's too weird to suddenly come out of the closet and go, hey, by the way, are fantastic. Now, anytime I visit them, they ask me if or when I'll settle down with a nice girl and give them grandchildren. Sometimes I think they're telling a joke to wind me up, but every time I laugh in their face. Why don't you ask me to worship the devil while you're at it? To be honest, and relationships have never been particularly important to me, although I don't know to which degree that's my parents' fault. My 3 other siblings seem relatively normal in comparison. 2 of them are married, and the third doesn't hide the fact he likes women and has had girlfriends. To this day, though, both my folks do everything to go out of their way to prevent him from sleeping with his girlfriend, a 21-year-old adult. All that said, I do not believe in perfect parents. Mine only want the best for me, and they up like all parents do. They still raise me generally right, and my dad's Catholic conservatism taught me to love my neighbor and be empathetic, while my mom's feminism taught me not to treat women like a piece of meat. I also think in many respects they loosened up a little over time. Kind of ironic that they're still married after over 25 years when they went out of their way to tell me not to think about in relationships, though. Story 46, 1. When I was being bullied, I was told just to ignore them. Didn't work. Got bullied for 7 years in a row. Wasn't fun, too. I have ADHD. As a child, I needed therapy and medication. Instead, I received Reiki and Bach flowers. Didn't help, but it did make me incredibly superstitious, which came to bite me in the years later. Story 47, putting all the academic and household work on me. Whether it was because I was the eldest or the female, I'm not too sure. Anyway, now my teenage brother, who never had to lift a finger his entire life, can barely go to the corner store because he's afraid of everything his mommy couldn't shelter him from or shove on his older sister. Story 48, parents never seemed to find my sister and I pretty because we were white skin and blue eyes. They'll never forget the day they, with all seriousness, offered the both of us nose jobs. We had built a pretty solid foundation in having confidence for a long time, working against their negative-filled current. But that day hit us both so hard. Edit weren't white skin and blue. Story 49, I've pinpointed a few things. Want to highlight that they were good parents overall. Definitely love them, and they did a pretty good job, I think. 1, my mom limiting my social life. I was not really allowed to hang out with anyone outside of my church friends, which meant I missed out on developing close friendships with others, and of course had practically no experience with girls. I was pretty good at making friends and had lots of friend in a shallow sense, but I didn't realize until I moved into my apartment earlier this year, I'm 25, that I had literally never hosted friends. I'm a late bloomer socially as a result, never really opening up socially until 19, good at the initial steps of a friendship, but was bad at the upkeep. Initiating with a woman outside of a date is difficult. My brother does not have this problem because my brother lived with my dad in high school. 2, not being firm on punishment or using ineffective punishments. I struggled in school, undiagnosed ADHD despite obviously knowing the material. Whoopings aren't effective on me. They would ground me for predetermined periods of time that weren't terribly long and would often let me off punishment early. The only punishment I got that ever worked was an indefinite punishment that relied on me getting good grades. It worked without fail. 3, not forcing me to do my homework or being more involved in my education. I always said I didn't have any, so I didn't have to do it if they talked to my teachers even once they find out I did. Instead, they assumed because I was bright and well-behaved that I would do okay in school. My dad worked a lot, and my mom wasn't around during the week, so I don't blame them, but it would have been good for me. Story 50 telling me I'm wasting my time playing video games without even trying to offer me any alternative or try to engage with me using video games to try and coax me outside or into other things. You can't get upset at a kid for taking the easiest option if you don't even give them an alternative or try and understand what it is you're trying to discourage. To this day, my parents see games as a disruptive influence and make little to no effort to engage with that part of my life. I wish that instead of them seeing games as something that makes me separate from them, that there was something that could bring us together. But to them, games are just evil and addictive and have no value. Story 51, they didn't understand equity versus equality. They vehemently made sure everything was equal between the four of us, including money spent. All four of us tried dance class when we were small. 2 had left feet and quit. 2 were good and continued. In the later years, the 2 that didn't dance got shopping sprees, mobile phones, holidays abroad with friends, etc. When the 2 that danced wanted any of that me, they told me no or ID, have to have it for my birthday, and I always got dance costumes and dance shoes for Christmas. Story 52, finish your plate. Hello, full-blown eating disorder binge, eating, then restricting. Yes, I know money is tight, but parents, for the love of God, if your child says they're full done eating, don't force them to keep eating. Story 53, finally, my time to shine. The fact that every reaction I have to them yelling at me or them doing anything negative, they can't understand why I would react like that. Why do you want to stay in your room all day so I don't have to have even the slightest of interaction with you? Why is it that every time we call you to do something, you huff and puff because every time you call me to you, it's always something negative involving something I either did wrong or didn't do in the last couple of weeks? The hatred of all of the members of my family have really come to a head, especially involving me. My life outside of my house is perfect. I love my new high school. I have friends to hang out with. I'm finally out of that shitty middle school I was at before that made my life. So the only problem in my life right now is my mom, dad, and sister, who are all in their own ways. I know that this doesn't really answer the question. So I would say that a better answer is raising me and my sister as cleaners. They make us do the most unnecessary chores every weekend. And not only has this made us hate cleaning, which I assume they were trying to teach us, it also made us hate doing anything that they say to, no matter what it is. I just don't want to do it. Oh, I just thought of another one, raising us backwards. Teaching us responsibility first. Then when we became teenagers, love then. My mom has literally told me that it's not her job as a parent to love us. I know this is long and again, doesn't really answer the question, but I needed to tell this to someone. So what better place to do it than the hellscape that is Reddit? Story 54, the most obvious I can think of, is the fact that they think their divorce had no effect on me. Thinking it's normal, how one parent thinks Husha is doing the right thing by continuing his/her life with another wife-husband and restarting their family, while I was left out on both sides of the new family, especially due to the fact that they got joint custody. So I lived 50 of my life with family 1 and another with family 2, never 100 on either one. Why? I was 4. It took me 20 years to get over the fact that I don't belong on either side. So I had to make a new one, starting my own family with my lovely wife. Story 55, got a great mom who worked hard raising 5 kids, mostly alone, but she would often get very stressed and take things the wrong way no matter how I worded them. Also, she could get frustrated and give me sometimes for not being able to do something she considered easy or for forgetting stuff and very forgetful. That combination, among other factors, absolutely destroyed my confidence. Moved out at 18 and it gradually recovered, but I was around 25 before it was what I'd consider normal. Story 56, there would be an awkward silence at the dining table. They'd just sit there, as if made of stone. We were told to eat our dinners as they just stared at us. Story 57, trying to teach me to be responsible with money by making me save my allowance and lawn mowing money to buy a BB gun and then buy my younger brother one the next day, because he was jealous. All these years later, I've gotten my revenge because I'm broke and my brother is very responsible with his money. In your face, parents. Story 58, attention. Serious tag notice jokes. Puns and off-topic comments are not permitted in any comment, parent or child. Parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour, and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an AMA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit message compose. to AskReddit if you have any questions or concerns.